but in his eyes a sharpened truth resides. No raised voices, no attack, no heat, just weaving words, a rhythm cool and neat. He listens close, he lets your thoughts unroll, then finds the thread and takes precise control. Oh, bug in the machine, he sets the truth alight, demolishing the shadows, bringing clarity to sight. A master of the mind, a subtle, graceful fight, leaving no doubt, just pure, pure, brilliant light. The points unwind, the arguments align. He sees the flaws, the gaps, the subtle sign. He doesn't crush, he simply disangles, unraveling the knots, unbending all the angles. No raised voices, no attack, no heat, just weaving words, a rhythm cool and neat. He listens close, he lets your thoughts unroll, then finds the thread and takes precise control. Oh, bug in the machine, he sets the truth alight, demolishing the shadows, bringing clarity to sight. A master of the mind, a subtle, graceful fight, leaving no doubt, just pure, pure, brilliant light. Walk away bewildered, some just stare, but in their minds a new idea's there. He sows the seeds.
Hello? Yeah.
All right. Yeah, let's get into it, brother. What's up?
Yeah, I don't think God exists.
Okay.
Convinced.
Yeah. Perfect. I can run you through my argument.
Go
give you
for
the
it.
Premises. Okay, perfect. All right. Premise 1: things in the universe are in motion. Premise 2:
Okay.
nothing moves itself. Premise 3: a chain of movers can't go on infinitely in a per se causal chain. And conclusion 1: therefore there must be a first mover that isn't moved by anything else. Premise 4: whatever is not moved by another must have no potentiality. Therefore the first mover is pure act. Premise 5: humans are conscious beings possessing intellect and will. Premise 6: according to the principle of proportionate causality, the effect must pre-exist in its cause formally, virtually, or immanently. Premise 7: since consciousness exists in human beings and the first mover is the ultimate cause of all being, it must possess consciousness eminently or formally. Premise 8: only a being that is itself conscious can produce consciousness in this way. Therefore, the first mover must be conscious. This fully actualized conscious first mover is what we call God.
Okay. So I take issue with conclusions 1's second premise that there can't be. You're basically saying there can't be an infinite regress, which I disagree with. I think the universe has always existed. And you probably have to think that too, because in your other conclusion, you said that God is purely actual. We know that's not true, because if that's the case, then he would have always had to will the universe into existence. Otherwise, he went through a change, meaning he had potentiality.
Yeah. There's no problem with the universe always existing within this argumentation. So with a per se causal chain, that's what I'm arguing with an infinite regress. That you could argue that the universe infinitely exists and like space always existed and time always existed. That's fine. It's the per se causal chain is essentially a chain in which each cause is to move from potency to actuality, borrows its causal power from a previous cause that's already actual, right? In this chain, it's kind of like a vertical infinite regress where if one of the links is broken, all the links that are in front of it are all can't be actualized, right? The problem is with the infinite regress within a per se causal chain is that, like, if you imagine a per se causal chain as like a set of gears where each gear is only moving the gear in front of it because the gear behind it is already spinning, you can have an infinite amount of gears, but if there isn't a starting gear that's actualized that starts the rotation, then none of the gears are moving. None of the gears are made actual. So,
Well, I just posit that all the gears have always been moving. There doesn't need to be a first gear.
okay, yeah. So, if you are positing that the gears have always been moving, right, there would need to be a reason as to why those gears would be moving.
Yeah, it's necessitated by the laws of physics.
What do you mean by that?
Yeah, so there's this thing called the quantum eternity theorem that says that if there's a non-zero amount of energy in the universe, then the universe always existed. And that's based off of the Schrodinger equations, which gives me good reason to believe that there is infinite regress and that the universe has always existed. And if
Well,
the universe has always existed, there would be a contradiction with my worldview and your worldview, because you say there's a creator and I said that there isn't.
yeah. So the laws of physics wouldn't apply to to this type of, like, to a per se causal chain like that, or the type of metaphysical argumentation, because this is metaphysical argumentation. If I was arguing like more from the like physical side and evidence and science behind that, then those like laws of physics and that type of stuff would apply. But here I'm debating philosophically and metaphysics, which metaphysics you could break it down to being not physical. So the physical laws wouldn't apply to metaphysical principles.
Okay. That's it's fine. I think you that wouldn't uh that doesn't really respond to what I said. I'm saying that, like, okay, hang on. So if God is purely actual, then he would be unchanging, right? There would be no change that occurs, right?
Mm-hmm.
Within his will. Okay. So has God always willed the universe into existence, or did he start willing the universe into existence?
We would affirm that his willing of the universe into existence is eternal.
Okay. So he's always willed the universe. Okay, so he didn't create the universe then.
He would.
Because it's always existed.
You, either way, for the argumentation, I can argue that like space and time have always existed. I can grant that for the argumentation I'm making here.
Okay, so then he didn't create that.
Like this doesn't affect the argument.
Yeah, it totally does, because then there's no creator. Then there's no first mover, because it's always been moving.
But oh, okay, I see what you're saying. Yeah. I would posit that obviously within our worldview, we would posit that the universe and time and those types of things came from or are sourced from a first mover.
Okay.
And here also, like, with these gears, like, let's say you're affirming that there were gears that were, or parts of the per se causal chain that were always actual. Are you affirming that they're purely actual, like fully actual, or are you affirming that they're just like actualized but they still have potential?
I think so. I don't know. That's kind of I'm a little confused. It's kind of a confusing question. I'd say the gears always existed, and because they've always existed, the forces that govern them, such as like gravity and these other physical things, exist along with them. So then I suppose they would be. I'm not sure. I'm not too sure. I have no idea.
Okay, well, the problem is if you were to affirm that they're all pure act, to be fully actualized would include like having no potential. So you would have like the omni properties, etc. But then that would like kind of end up leading into contradictory if you're affirming that it's multiple different things. It would have to be like one thing. So
Yeah.
like you could either affirm that it was end up being one thing, which then is just goes back to like there being a first mover, the pure like the fully actualized conscious first mover, or you could argue that it's separate things that aren't fully actualized, but they're actual with some potential.
Okay. Sure. I mean, I think so. My purpose here was not. It was to critique your worldview. It was not necessarily to disprove mine. Right. I did my internal critique, and I think so. Let's back up a little bit. Okay. Okay. I see what you're saying. I see what you're saying. All right. What did you just say?
Okay, so I was saying you really have two options for these, like for example gears that are have always been actual. They're either fully actual or they're actualized but they have potential. If you're affirming that they're fully actualized, then they can't be separate because it leads in like some contradictions. So then they have to be one, which then that just go like affirms my position that there's a fully actualized conscious first mover. Or there, the other option you have is that they're not fully actualized, but they've been actual and they have potential as well, like some potential.
Right. Well, I already said that there can't possibly be a fully actualized conscious first mover because it wouldn't be able to move anything because then it would have to have potential in order to move anything.
Why would it have to have
Yeah, because
potential in order to move?
it's not actually moving anything if it's always been moving, right? So what I'm saying is if it either has always been doing this moving that you're talking about, or it started moving, which means that it had potential. So if it's always been doing this moving, then it's not really moving anything because it's always been moving, right?
I don't see how it couldn't be the first mover if it's always been moving. Like I don't see how that like the
Yeah,
argumentation
it's
would
always
make
been
any.
moving everything, meaning everything's always been moving. It doesn't need a mover if everything's always been moving.
If the first cause has always been moving, always been actual, and then it's actualizing other things into existence and those types of things, how would that mean that it would have to have potential in order to do that?
Yeah. So what I'm saying that like
Like so, a potential, just to clarify, is the capacity to become something else, but it's not yet that thing.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it would need to
So
have potential in order to actualize other things.
sure.
Like,
So
explain that.
okay. So there's so either it was always moving or it started moving or it eventually started moving, right? I already asked that question and you said it always been moving. It always had been moving things. So if it's always been moving things eternally, then it never is really moving anything. These things are moving themselves, right? So then the universe has always existed, like I said, meaning there's no actual mover. There's a contradiction here.
I affirm that um it's eternally willed to create the creation of everything in its existence. We would affirm that, for example, like the start of the universe is creating as we observe it would be the start of time. Um,
Okay, so the universe did start.
yeah, I affirm that within our worldview, we would affirm that time and space and those types of things did start.
Okay, so then God does change.
No.
Okay, then so if he doesn't, so either he wasn't willing the universe, he went from not willing the universe to willing the universe. That's a change.
No, he's eternally willed the universe. It's just
Okay, so then the universe always existed, he didn't start.
the effect of that the when the he so he's eternally willing the universe to be created, and the effect of that is the creation of the universe, and that effect right there it would be like the start of time as well as like a byproduct. Is there wasn't a moment where he wasn't willing the creation of the universe and then he willed it. There was never a change.
Okay, so he'd always willed the universe into existence, but then somewhere in that time, somewhere in between him willing and then there's time, is what you're saying.
Yeah, time would be like a byproduct
A
for the
byproduct
start
of him
of
willing
the
the
universe.
universe into existence. Okay. Okay.
I want to go
So
back to
so
like
then
what you
time
said.
is outside of his will then.
No, no.
Okay. So
Like how would
yeah,
time be
that would
outside
be
of his will
the
then?
case because so he's willing the universe, and then subsequently there's also time that that comes into existence. Is that time coming into existence because of him, or is it not because of him?
It's because of him. If
Okay,
he
so then yeah, there's another change.
if he didn't will the creation of the universe, time would not exist. I want to go back to what you were saying with the potential, with potentia. You when you're like, I still don't
Okay.
understand like how for some like this purely actual being to be able to actualize something else, how it would need to have potential.
Yeah, so I'm saying it either has potential or it's never really done anything.
Why is that the case?
So and it's the same thing as I was just saying, how either he was always willing the universe into existence or he started to will it into existence. It's they it's like a they map or they compare, right? So either he started moving, meaning he wasn't always moving, or he'd always been moving. In that case, he didn't really move anything.
No, how would that mean that the eternal like how would that mean that the fully actualized being would need potential in order
Yeah,
to?
it's either he does it's either
Or
he
are you
started so
arguing
he
that
has
like
potential
if he's
and then he
eternally
becomes
willing
actual,
creation, then the
or
effect is eternal will? Like this
huh?
are you arguing that if he eternally willed creation or to create, that the effect, creation itself, is also eternal?
No, I wouldn't. I don't think I'd say that.
Okay. So then there's not really, I don't see the argument at all here then.
Okay, so either he's so you're saying that he's always been actual, right? So that means he's unchanging. That means he doesn't change, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay. So then that means that he'd always been moving. He'd always been moving everything.
He he been he's eternally willed creation and
Yeah. Okay.
everything.
Okay. So then that means that there's a contradiction because the universe always existed, meaning he didn't really create anything because it always existed. So
He didn't
it's
create anything because the universe hasn't always existed.
yeah, but you just said he'd always been willing the universe into existence.
Yeah, we affirm that he's eternally willed the universe into existence, and like the effect of this is a temporal. Like within like Aristotelian Thomistic metaphysics, they would affirm that the first mover can eternally will the creation, and then this eternal will can have a temporal effect.
Okay. So I have to go. I have to go walk my dog.
Okay.
I'll come back. You can let up Monkey Boy Logic.
Okay. Monkey Boy Logic, you're coming up.
Hey, what's up?
Yeah. What's up? What do you want to talk about?
Yeah, I'm interested in talking about that first mover argument that you were mentioning.
Yeah. Do you want me to read you through the premises?
Well, is it just the paradigmatic argument? Because if that's the case, I'm like familiar with the argument.
It's a variant of the argument for motion.
Okay. Then yeah, I mean, you could read it if you would like.
Okay, sure. Premise 1, things in the universe are in motion. Premise 2, nothing moves itself. Premise 3, a chain of movers can't go on infinitely in a per se causal chain. Therefore, there must be a first mover that isn't moved by anything else. Premise 4, whatever is not moved by another must have no potentiality. Therefore, the first mover is pure act. Premise 5, humans are conscious beings possessing intellect and will. Premise 6, according to the principle of proportionate causality, the effect must pre-exist in its
I think we
cause.
could just stop here
Yeah.
for now. I mean, at least from how you're reading it, it doesn't seem like the argument's going to be formally valid, but that's just an issue we can put to the side.
No, we could talk about that. If you think the argument's not valid, I can explain it to you. Like, I can tell you the inference rules and that type of thing.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. We could put that to the side. The issue there just is of course there's like the incredibly queer nonsense metaphysics that's employed by the scholastics, which is about potentia and actuality or realized potentia when you're describing motion. So of course, like then I wouldn't have any reason to even think there's motion. But supposing that I do adopt a metaphysics like that, right? So I do think there's motion in the world, which I don't. If there is motion, at least by your control of motion in the world, what's unclear is why would I think that if some given thing's in motion or becomes in motion, that thing requires a causal explanation. Now you said it's true that for something to be in motion, that it can't be the explanation for its own motion, right? But that's saying that explanations are irreflexive, to which a given thing can't be the explanans for its own motion, so it can't be the thing explaining its motion. But that's clearly different from saying that something enters motion and that fact is and what I don't see is reason to think that.
Okay. So what specifically is your problem? Is your problem that
Well,
something
I
in
just
motion
raised the
can
problem.
be its own explanation for its motion?
I'm saying I don't see why I would think that things entering motion even has an explanation.
So like brute facts, like things can enter motion for no reason? Is that what you're affirming?
I'm saying, well, that's obviously a possibility, right? And it seems like you're actually denying that, right? So obviously I'm taking issue with that.
Okay, yeah. So okay. Yeah, so I would affirm that PSR, like,
Oh, like what's the argument for the
I would
PSR?
affirm PSR. I would say that denying PSR would lead to there not being a rational reason why something exists rather than not, and leads into a violation of the law of non-contradiction.
Yeah, obviously I don't believe that. 1, 2, well, leads, that doesn't, well, there's a couple confusion there. One is obviously, the first thing is that when you say leads to, it seems like you're saying it's implied or entailed.
Yeah, I can explain how it ends up
but-
being a violation of law of
but-
non-contradiction.
No, but that couldn't be true because look, in any case, what I'm saying is, I think that's like what you just said, it doesn't even make any sense, but supposing it were like intelligible, I don't believe it. But that doesn't even matter whether or not I believe that or not, because that's just an appeal to consequence. What I'm asking for is an argument establishing that the PSR is true.
Yeah, I can explain how the PSR. Do you affirm the laws of logic?
No, that's what I said doesn't make any sense.
Okay. You don't affirm that.
Okay. No, you're not understanding. They're not they're not apt to be affirmed, right? They're not propositions.
Would you affirm that they're self-evident truths?
No, I mean, if you're listening, what I just said makes like that impossible.
Okay, so
They're not
the laws of
propositions,
logic,
right?
in your worldview, do you believe that the laws of logic are true?
I've already responded to. Look, again, they're not propositions.
If you're gonna be an obscurantist and act like this, then you can go to a different live, dude. Like, if you're not gonna,
the thing is that
if you're
you're
going to like
asking- look.
gatekeep your worldview and the position you hold, so that I can't address it, or I can't continue with
I'm
like
not doing anything close.
we can't
to that.
continue
Look,
with the
it's like
logical
you're asking
discussion. It's a
me,
waste
do
of
you-
time. I'm asking you if you affirm PSR, or if you affirm the laws of logic, like the laws of non-contradiction.
I've already
truth in the middle,
answered that
etc.
question. You're just not listening.
y-
Is the point?
Yes, no, like what's the answer?
Yeah,
if I missed
I've already said that's a conceptual error. That they're not propositions. They're not apt to be affirmed. That's what I said.
Do they exist
Then you
and are
asked me
like
if I believe
authoritative?
they're
Like
true.
you know
don't
what I'm
know.
trying to ask
I
you.
don't-
You're just gonna play word games, dude.
Okay, well now you're just psychologizing. But in any case, I don't actually. know what you mean by are they authoritative. If you're asking me, do I think the laws of logic exist? If you're talking about like in the hefty ontological sense, then obviously not. Well, maybe that's not obvious to you, but no, I wouldn't think they exist.
Okay, so you don't think they exist.
Yeah, but that's irrelevant because what your claim is that
Would you affirm that contradictions can exist in reality?
well, I don't even think we should get into any of that because none of this is really
It's
matters.
important because if you don't, then you would be
One is
denying
obviously
the
my views are not of
LNC,
the
and then I can
interest of you
go
offering
I can go
arguments
off of
supporting
that
the
and
PSR.
justify LNC, and then we can get back to PSR. If you do affirm LNC, affirm it,
the
then you would be
LNC is not a
affirming
proposition,
LNC,
so you
and
can't
then I can go
justify it.
into justifying PSR. So it is important.
Well, you can't justify the LNC. It's not a proposition.
Do you believe
Well, look, I'm just-
contradictions can exist in reality?
That doesn't matter because currently we're trying to get you to.
This is just a waste of time, then, dude. Monkey, I'm not gonna bring you up. You're just an obscurantist. You do this to everyone you debate. What's up, Contra?
Hey, so my first one is pretty straightforward. I was curious as to why so many Christians put so much faith in Paul.
Yeah, we put Paul like Paul kind of falls into like the same boat or similarities as to like the Old Testament prophets, in which God revealed to them, spoke to them in visions. Right, they were messengers of God. We would affirm Paul because historically, like within the church tradition, the apostles affirm Paul, and we understand for example, Luke 10:16. If you reject the words of the apostles, then you're rejecting Christ and the one who sent him, which would be the Father, right? So, and as well as we affirm that like the road to Damascus and that vision and Christ appearing to him and speaking to him did happen as well.
All right. The reason why I ask is because I'm just trying to look at it straightforward logically. So Paul had revelation, and how do we know that Paul had this revelation from God? Because Paul said so. The apostles vouched for Paul. How do we know that? Because Paul said so. The road to Damascus story didn't even come until decades later in Scripture. So there's so much of Christianity that hinges on Paul. People wouldn't even know about Jesus if it wasn't for Paul. And you basically have to take it at his word and proceed with this. Am I looking at this wrong? Am I understanding it incorrectly?
No, I see where you're coming from. Like a lot of the justifications for Paul's authority and those types of things come from like using Paul's letters and writings.
Yeah.
But we see Paul's affirmation from non-Pauline texts like 2 Peter 3:15 through 16. We also see, like, for example, like we see him being a part of the early church in like the Council of Jerusalem in Acts 15. And we see that like Paul's commissioned by the Holy Spirit and the prophets and teachers in the church in Acts 13:1-3. There's a bunch of miracles affirmed by Paul or performed by Paul that are recorded in Acts 14:18-10, Acts 16:16-18, Acts 19:11-12, and so on. It's not. It's more like I feel like more of your problem is the fact that the common justifications for Paul end up being circular because they use Paul's text and what he says.
Yes, actually, you just hit it right on the nose, because I was just about to ask you about that. Because I can understand justifications after the fact, but if you're looking at it like a chain of custody for evidence, everything still traces back to Paul, and specifically having faith in what he said and just trusting him.
Okay.
But you're saying that's a non-issue for Christians.
Yeah. We would say it's a non-issue because outside of the Pauline epistles and Paul's texts, he's like explicitly affirmed by Peter and James, who are two of the most authoritative figures in the early church. And once again,
Only
like
because
Paul,
Paul
like
said so.
Luke 10:16 and that type of thing, where if you were to reject the teaching of the apostles, you're rejecting Christ and the Father. And
No,
also
I
we
can
see that
understand that
he
rule,
is
but Paul's the one that said that James is the affirmed him.
no, this is like,
gotta take
this
Paul
is
at his word
Second
for it.
Peter. This isn't a Paul didn't write Peter.
When was that written in relation to Paul's writings?
I have no clue off the top of my head.
Okay.
It's always been attributed to Peter. It's a Petrine text.
Well, the reason why I was asking is because I attribute some of the later scriptures, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, as being, I guess, plot hole fillers. Like, for example, why would Paul not write about Immaculate Conception? Why does that have to come later on, decades later, in Scripture, to fill that in? Things like that. Not only that, but that Scripture, there wasn't somebody specifically named Matthew or Mark or Luke.
Well, in
these
that
are-
exact name,
this-
yeah. Obviously, those
Well, yeah, they were
those
assigned by the
names are
church.
derived
You're
from
right.
like transliterations.
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
But that's still perfectly fine with Christians, though.
The transliteration name, yeah. I mean, it's fine because it's their names transliterated into English. It's like the same thing as like people who take offense to the Bible being translated to English and not being in the original language. It's so that people who don't speak Greek and Hebrew can be able to read the scripture and understand and comprehend and talk about it.
No,
it's
that's
not. It's
just
not a
practical.
problem.
That makes
We don't
sense.
take it as
I
a
mean,
problem.
yeah, if you want to spread the word, you're going to do it in multiple languages as best you can. That makes complete sense. I'm talking about the fact that scriptures are more so the writings from anonymous people, and then segmented by the church to say, okay, these are the ones that we're going to follow. Forget what Barnabas said. We're not going to use the scripture of Barnabas because it doesn't flow with the story, and we're just going to use these 4 sets, and we're going to name them, Mark, Paul, Matthew, and John. And they were passed anonymously before they were assigned those names.
Yeah.
Is that not something that's believed, or is that understood but still accepted?
No, we affirm, like, when it comes to the anonymity of the text, like our understanding of who wrote it come from church traditions and traditions that sparked from the time and from the people that existed and lived in that time. Obviously today, right, we don't have, due to like us not being from that time and having lived in that period, we obviously don't know who wrote it, but our understanding and the attributing of the scriptures comes from the people who lived in that time and who would have known.
Well, not necessarily. Not certainly when it comes to Paul, because Paul didn't write his until decades after Jesus died. Not only did he not know Jesus, he lived nowhere near Jesus or spent any time anywhere near the same location as Jesus. Jesus never wrote anything down. Neither did any of his apostles. And it's quite possible that the apostles were actually illiterate. So all of this is coming through Paul as a revelation from God. And if you can accept that, then everything else makes sense. But if that is a sticking point for you, that's where you start to begin to question things. And for someone that's not Christian, that's where I'm questioning this, chain of custody, so to speak. Like, how are we supposed to take this, as proof, as acceptable proof, when I just have to take the guy for his word?
Well, it's not just Paul's words, right? A lot of like the things that Paul did and stuff, like there's a lot of church tradition from the churches that were around in that area in that time. You also got to understand that some validity in Paul's writings and stuff, obviously, like even ignoring the apostles affirming it in like Second Peter and his miracles that are recorded in Acts, and his like him being with the apostles, teaching alongside them, being sent by them, and those types of things all throughout Acts as well. A lot of his authority also comes from him dying as a martyr and for what he believed in, right? It wouldn't make much logical sense for Paul to be a liar and continue to be lying about these types of things while he's getting persecuted and while Christians are being killed and while he eventually gets killed, right? It doesn't,
No, that makes
it,
sense, but it's
yeah, it
still an
adds
assumption.
validity, a lot of validity to his claims because of his situation and because of his martyrdom uh, and his persecution.
No, I get it. Why die on a hill if it's for nothing, But it's still opinion. It's still people are drawing conclusions rather than being able to point to facts. And it's like, well, it's just an assumption at that point.
I wouldn't argue it's an assumption. We're just not. It's not. We're just.
Well,
We're not
you asked it
basically
in the question,
assuming
like,
that
why
Paul
would
was
he do
telling the
this?
truth. We're looking at, for example, human psyche and how we could attribute that to, like, historically how human psyche works, and how Paul was continuing to do this while being jailed, imprisoned, tortured, beaten, and eventually killed, and how that's
After being
not
the one that did
typical
it
to human
himself.
psyche if you are the one that's actually making the lie up, and that we attributing that to him having validity. We also see, for example, outside of Paul, that he's been written about by committing miracles, and his tradition, not only from what we see in Acts of him being with the apostles, but church tradition that comes outside of the scriptures and from churches and people that existed and lived during that time and could have observed it, also affirming that Paul was with the apostles and teaching alongside them and those types of things. With all the historical evidence that we have in our understanding of human psychology, it points towards Paul being a trustworthy source, or having validity.
Would you say that it's just as likely that Paul was telling a story of a Messiah, and his was just one in the many in the Messiah being told at the time? That there weren't other people going around claiming
No,
that
I
either
wouldn't just
they
group
were
him
or they
in
knew
with, like,
Messiahs?
the other stories of a Messiah or any of the apostles, because they get them dying for what they claim to have seen, and our understanding that it's not typical of human psyche to die for a lie that they themselves are making up. In fact, that the apostles and Paul and the early Christians did do that, it gives them a lot more validity in comparison to these other claims of messiahs, especially even today, where people are just claiming to be the Messiah baselessly and without punishment, right?
No, but I'm saying other people that existed in that same time. Other people did die on that hill, claiming either to be messiahs or that they've known the Messiah and telling the word of those messiahs outside of Christianity. So
Yeah,
that
but
punishment
they
still
don't
did get
they don't
handed down.
have
They
that
still did suffer from it.
that, like, scenario or validity that we see with the apostles and Paul,
Well, because he sold it the best.
by, like, doing something abnormal in human psyche, and all these apostles and Paul dying for what they claim to have seen and being persecuted and murdered for what they claim
Yes,
to see.
there are other people that claimed Messiah and also got persecuted and also got put to death. Yes.
Like who?
Nothing off the top of my head, but if you give me a moment,
Yeah, you
can
can take your time.
see if I can pull that up.
The stream, is the audio better? Like, can y'all hear well?
I've been hearing you just fine.
All right.
And was somebody saying your
So
audio
someone
was
in my
off?
chat was saying that the
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
audio was, like, messed up. They didn't explain why that or how. Vortex.
Looks like there's been an Egyptian prophet around the 50s CE.
What was his name?
Acted around 30,000 people, according to Josephus, whoever Josephus is.
Josephus, yeah.
there we go.
Vortex. Should we get apophatic to debate Monkey Boy? That'd
Let's see.
be gold.
Simon of Perea crowned
So
himself king.
let's start one at a time. What was the first one? The name of the first one?
Oh, I was just calling out names, dude. My apologies. Well, the first I see here on this list is Judas, of course. Judas of Galilee.
Like,
did not explicitly claim to be the Messiah, but led a revolt with
Yeah.
strong theocratic and national assault.
Yeah,
Yep.
specifically, like, I want the scenario that you're talking about where someone was claiming to be a Messiah and they died for that claim. Like,
Okay. Theodorus.
Theodorus.
Are you familiar with Theodorus? Yes. Claimed he could part the Jordan River, gathered a large crowd
Theodorus of
with
what?
messianic expectations. Oh, that's just the maybe he's like a Beyonce. It's the only one name, one word name. But he was beheaded by Romans under Fetus, looks like.
Yeah, like,
But he was seen by Romans
is
as
there,
another
like,
would-be
the
Messiah. during that
source or documentation for where, like, for that?
time. Oh, sure. Yeah, I can look it up.
Yeah. Vortex. He would lose his mind if he debated Monkey Boy. He does not have the patience for that. He didn't even have the patience for Moses.
Let's see.
Dark and Noose debate, dude.
What is this? Antiquities? 25:1?
Antiquities of the Jews.
Let's see.
Book what and chapter?
25 and 1.
Book 25, chapter 1.
No, 20.5.1.
Oh.
And then there's also Acts 5:36.
20.5.1.
Correct. Yep.
Created of Judea, that a certain magician whose name of Theodorus persuaded a great part of people to take their effect with them and follow him to the river Jordan, for he told them he was a prophet, that he would by his own command divide the river and afford them an easy passage, and many were deluded by his words. However, Thaddeus did not permit them to make any advantage of his wild attempts. He sent troops of horsemen out against them, who, falling upon them unexpectedly, slew many of them and took many of them alive. They also took Thaddeus alive and cut off his head and carried it to Jerusalem. I would argue that this wouldn't be analogous to the scenario we see with Christ and the apostles.
I mean, it was
for example, Thaddeus here is making an acclaim without, and then they like come up there and like pretty much immediately kill him, right? It's not the same scenario where like what we see with Paul and the apostles, where they're making these claims, they know they're going to be killed, they see the persecution, they continue to make these same claims while now experiencing persecution, being jailed, imprisoned, being tortured, and then they still continue to make these claims without reverting back to the point where they eventually get martyred and killed for what they claim. I see that as a cognizant understanding that you are going to be killed, that you are going to continue to be tortured for this belief, versus Thaddeus is like a crazy guy at a river making a claim that he's a prophet, and then the military comes down there and kills him, and we don't understand. We don't have any information on how he reacted and acted to him being killed. If he was to say that like he was joking or he was lying or anything like that, all we know is that he was making this claim. They came down there and just killed him.
No, I understand that.
So it's not like a cognizant understanding that you will die, that you are going to continue to be tortured, as we see with the apostles and Paul.
But was that immediate for Paul? Or was that immediate for Paul, or did he have to, or did he have time to try to spread, his word to different churches?
Martyrdom? No, he was probably teaching
before that stuff started to happen to him.
A decade, being persecuted, imprisoned, all over the place, beaten.
I know, but it wasn't immediate though, right?
What?
The being persecuted, being beaten.
No, it wasn't like.
It's not like it happened out the gate.
It wasn't out the gate, but it happened continuously over a long period of time. Versus with Theodorus, it was something where he said this one thing and just got immediately killed about it.
Yeah.
We don't know. We don't have information on how he reacted or what he said before or like while they were dragging him and about to kill him and those types of things, right? We just know that he claimed to be a prophet, and they just immediately wiped that guy out. I would say
I
it's
guess
not
what I'm
like
trying to get at for
analogous
when
to
it
the
comes to Paul
scenario
is
that we have with the apostles and Paul.
once you're invested a good bit, in for a penny, in for a pound, right? So he pitched this to different churches, and it was starting to catch. And he even had Barnabas back him up and provide some validity to his name, and it warranted further eyes looking at it, and that happened peacefully for a while before it wasn't peaceful anymore. Before he started to get beaten and persecuted for it. That's what I'm saying, is that he was initially invested in it. Everything was all good and fine until it wasn't. But he's so much in this direction, so much down this path now, that he's trying to see it through, and unfortunately doesn't look out for it.
Paul?
Is that not a likely case?
Not like he continued even after he was like beaten in jail and those types of things. For example, on his second missionary trip when he went to Philippi, in Acts 16, I believe it's Acts 16 through 24, he gets beaten and jailed, and we still see that he continues to preach and continue on even after this. It wasn't like something where it's like he was all pumped up, he was like super emphatic and enthusiastic and ready to do this thing. He does it, gets beaten, and then he's like kind of like dies down and like doesn't do it as much.
Yeah. No, I get it. I don't doubt that happened. I'm just saying that I think it's possible that he felt like ultimately in the end he was going to overcome the problems that he was facing, and it just didn't work out for him. The other people,
We have no
let's say,
information on that, like, to justify that.
Mustache Man in Germany felt that he was right about things up until he wasn't.
Like we don't have any grounding or basis off that. That's like just purely speculation or opinion at that point.
Well, I know, but your claim is also speculation and opinion too. That why would he do this if it weren't for this?
But it's based on like
not
logical
speculation.
reasoning. You're just saying what you're saying here. It's like on his mind on this is like what's it based off of? Like, I'm basing my reasonings off what we see in recorded human history on how humans act when they are lying, and making these lies, and how it's very atypical for something like this to happen. It's extremely unlikely in recorded human history.
But it's not heard of.
For something like this to happen, and especially at like scale, right? So like I have some like logical grounding or basis for my reasoning. I don't see like what the basis for the reasoning with that is.
No, that's fine. And I'm not going to try, because you seem deeply rooted in it. I'm not going to try to dissuade you from thinking that. I mean, it is what it is at this point. But I was taking a break from work. I appreciate you letting me come up, and I appreciate the talk, man.
Of course. Appreciate it.
Yeah,
God
have a
bless.
good one.
See you. If anyone disagrees with the background or has any questions, request up as guest. Let's get someone else up here. Trying to prove Christian. God loves you. Appreciate it, Julia. Amen. That's a crazy name. Tactical Femboys. Absolutely diabolical TikTok name. Yeah. I think I'm gonna end the TikTok live here. I might hop on like some other people's TikTok lives, but I appreciate y'all for all tuning in. I really do appreciate you liking the live and helping me start up and staying with me so that it gets in the algorithm. It means a lot to me, y'all. God bless you all. I'm live on YouTube, so if you guys want to continue to watch, I'm going to be on YouTube. Appreciate it. God bless. All right, YouTube. Let me blow my nose one more time. Hold up. All right. Hold up. Okay. Here's the deal. I'm gonna see if I can get like one more. See if I can find like a little TikTok debate as another one, joining another live stream. All right, we already found one. We found one in 5 seconds.
All people.
Hey, what's up?
Not for all people, astaghfirullah, for those pagans specifically. What's up, bro?
What's up? Where do you believe Muhammad is prophesied in the Bible?
Book of Daniel,
Daniel chapter
2 and 7.
27?
2 and 7.
2 and 7. Okay. Yeah. So, would you affirm that within Daniel that the Son of Man is Muhammad? Like Daniel
That's
7?
correct. That's correct.
Okay. And what makes you think that the Son of Man is Muhammad?
Because it says the kingdom that he establishes destroys the Roman Empire. And the Muslims were the only people to destroy the Roman Empire. So it can only be talking about them.
And you would affirm that like within the Islamic paradigm that we are supposed to serve Muhammad?
Yeah, chapter 4, verse 80.
Okay. Yeah. What verse do you want to start with?
Well, it seems like you already know it. So why don't we just talk about who destroyed the Roman Empire?
I mean, yeah. I would argue that, like, for example, I don't see how I don't see Daniel 7 being about Muhammad.
That's
like,
fine.
within-
Who destroyed the Roman Empire?
I mean, it depends in what sense.
In the same way that the Greek Empire was
Like,
destroyed by
I
the
would affirm that, like,
one sec. I'm gonna give you the sense. In the sense that the same way that the Babylonian Empire was destroyed by the Middle Persian Empire, the same way Middle Persian Empire was destroyed by the Greek Empire, same way that the Greek Empire was destroyed by the Roman Empire. In that sense, who destroyed the Roman Empire? In that sense, who put it to an end?
I would affirm that the Muslims finished them off.
Okay, that's nice. So the Muslims put an end to the Roman Empire.
So
They possess. Okay, so if we're consistent with the text, the same way that Daniel talks about the destruction of all the other kingdoms, the Roman Empire is also going to be destroyed in a similar manner, and that manner was only accomplished by the Muslims. So that's how we know that this is about Islam and it's about the Muslims and the Prophet.
Yeah.
Okay.
So my contention is, like, I would affirm that it's also possible within the Christian paradigm that the kingdom, in some sense, could have destroyed the Roman Empire in the sense of being like a superior kingdom, or outlasting and eventually consuming all these earthly kingdoms, right? My contention really is on Daniel 7. Like,
Wait,
specifically, like,
can we,
13,
wait, we
14
need to
being
check that.
Muhammad.
Hold on, we need to test that real quick. When did the Christians destroy the Roman Empire?
I would
When did
affirm
that
that it's in the sense of like a superior kingdom. For example, like Christ's kingdom would be being an eternal spiritual kingdom that outlasts.
That's fine, but it says that the fifth kingdom, it has to destroy like these other kingdoms. So when did Christ's kingdom destroy the Roman Empire? When did this happen?
Well, I would argue it's in a different sense.
Okay, that's whatever sense. When did it happen?
I would argue it like at the establishment.
Okay, the establishment,
Or its
325,
existence.
fourth century, right?
Its continued existence, establishment and continued existence. It's not
When-
like a
when was-
specific
when was
point
it?
in time.
Wait, when was it established in the Roman Empire?
Established in the Roman, it was established like 33 AD. Like I could argue.
Okay, beautiful.
We can agree on
Okay,
that.
that's
But
okay.
I would
Nice.
argue that it's establishment and continued existence.
Okay, beautiful. Daniel says that the destruction comes after the Roman Empire divides. And that the kingdom is also established after the Roman Empire divides.
Where
Everything
does it
that you
say
just told.
that the kingdom is established after the Roman Empire divides?
Yeah, Daniel 2:34 and Daniel 2:41.
Let me pull up Daniel 2.
So the destruction must come after 395.
Assalamu
The
alaikum.
stone was cut
Walaikum
out by
assalam.
no human hand, and it struck the image on its feet of iron and clay and broke them
I got
in
TMA.
pieces. So Daniel 2:34, how is that tell
Yeah,
us that it's after the kingdom divides?
yeah, because the order of the kingdoms is sequential, and the rock comes after, and the rock strikes the statue on its feet. What do the feet represent?
What do the feet represent?
Iron and clay, which is the divided Roman Empire, becoming two kingdoms.
How does the iron and clay equate to a divided Roman Empire?
Yeah, Daniel 2:41.
And as you saw, the feet and toes, partly of potter's clay and partly of iron, it shall be a divided kingdom, but some of the firmness of iron shall be in you, just as you saw iron mixed with the soft clay. Okay, and you're affirming that the iron is the Roman Empire.
Yeah, the iron would be Eastern Rome, and then the clay would be Western Rome, because it becomes two empires, two kingdoms.
Okay.
Bro, my bad. I'm taking this serious, bro. I promise.
No, you're all good. Yeah,
Ahmed, look
it's
in, look
still-
in.
and this is coming. This establishment of the kingdom is after they're divided.
Yeah, that's correct.
And where's that?
Yeah, I just gave it to you. We know that the kingdoms are sequential, and that the kingdom destroys the rock after it's divided. So it comes after its division. So the destruction must come after the Roman Empire is divided, as well as
Yeah,
the
but
kingdom.
that doesn't mean
Daniel
the
says that.
establishment of the kingdom.
Yeah,
has to
Daniel
come
says that
after
in
it's
in
divided.
Daniel 2. Yeah, in Daniel 2:44, he says in the days of those kings, meaning the kings of the Roman Empire after it's divided.
Yeah, the days of those kings, while like them existing.
Yeah, while the Roman Empire still exists.
Yeah, the Roman Empire still exists in 33 AD when they.
Yeah, but it has to be after its division, because again, if you're reading this, Daniel's talking in a chronological order. He's talking sequentially. Verse 40 talks about the Roman Empire destroying all the other kingdoms. Verse 41 through verse 43 talks about its division. Then verse 44 says, in the days of those kings, right after talking about its division. So it's going to be after its division. So the kingdom must come, and it must destroy the Roman Empire between 395 and 1453. Daniel gives us a beautiful, clear timeline, right?
Mm-hmm. All right. Yeah, like I still see like I see that it's affirming that the in the days of those kings that this kingdom will establish, but I don't see how that would affirm that it's in the days specifically of the divided kingdom, because like historically pre-divided the division of the Roman kingdom, it still existed as that.
I agree, Rome still existed, but Rome still also existed after it divided. But because verse 40 talks about the Roman Empire destroying the other kingdoms, and then verse 41 through verse 43 literally is only talking about the division, and then verse 44 says, in the days of those kings, right? Still talking about after the division. This means after the division, this is going to happen, right? We don't need to hinge on this point for too long, right? Nonetheless, if you want to say that the kingdom comes after before, I really don't care. The destruction has to come after, right? The destruction must come sometime after 395. Not just that, you talked about the destruction being some sort of spiritual destruction. I should have touched on this earlier, but not a single one of your church fathers believed that it was going to be some sort of spiritual destruction. They believed it's going to be some sort of literal physical destruction. So I don't know where you're getting this interpretation that it's not a destruction in that sense, because all Daniel has been talking about is a destruction in that sense, and no rabbi, no church father understood it the way that you're understanding it now, right? And you've already agreed that the Muslims, they're the ones who put an end to the Roman Empire in the same way the other empires were destroyed.
Yeah. So qua like in insofar as it comes with like the church fathers and rabbis, even if none of the rabbis specifically write about it being a spiritual destruction, like rabbis, we don't.
Okay, where are you getting your
care.
interpretation from?
When Yeah, so I'm getting my interpretation and understanding from like the within the Christian paradigm, if we are taking Daniel 2 as being an actual prophecy,
I didn't ask that. I said, where do you get your interpretation from?
I'm telling you where I get my interpretation from. If we're taking it as Daniel 2 being an actual prophecy, if it is to be about the Christ kingdom, it would, and it's the Son of Man's kingdom, which obviously within the Christian and Jewish paradigm, we
You
understand
have
that
to
the Son
you
of
have to
Man is
presuppose
the
this Christ's
Messiah.
kingdom. Yeah, you have to presuppose that to believe that. I'm asking, who believed this?
Who I couldn't give you a specific like church father who affirms this off the top of my head.
Okay, I can tell you. I've read the fathers. I've read Justin Martyr. I've read Irenaeus. I've read Hippolytus. I've read Jerome. I've read Augustine. Nobody interprets it this way.
No, I mean I can't verify that of like right now, but
It's okay.
I could
It's
take your
okay.
word for it. Even
Look, how
even
about
if no
look?
even,
Wait. How about this? You don't have to. I don't want you to take my word. That's not very nice of me, right? I need to show good, proper host etiquette. So I need to give you the source. So you can, and I'm just gonna give you one father because I have it just off the top of my head. And Against Heresies, chapter 5 or book 5, chapter 26, right? Literally just in the heading, Irenaeus says this is the dissolution and the desolation of the Roman Empire. And if you continue reading, he says all of this is accomplished when Christ comes back, right? Which is like typical interpretation of a lot of the fathers. They believe Christ was going to accomplish this in his second coming because nobody believed that the Roman Empire was destroyed.
that's fine. Whether he says that or not, like obviously we don't take
Okay,
the
so your
church fathers
interpretation has
as
no basis.
being infallible.
So I don't know where you're getting your interpretation from. It seems like you're just making it up on the spot.
No, my understanding is from the like from our understanding like within the Christian and even the Jewish paradigm, for example, with Daniel 7 and what the Son of Man, who the Son of Man is, which is the Messiah, right? Obviously the Christians affirm it's Christ. We would understand based on history and what we've seen, if these assuming Daniel 2 is a prophecy and it's about these kingdoms, right? Then in the sense it has to be in is in a spiritual sense, or in the sense of being outlasting.
So then why didn't any
being
church
a
father
greater
believe
kingdom.
that? So then why didn't any church father believe that?
I don't know. That's more of like an epistemic limitation, to be honest. I'm not.
Okay,
I
so
can't read
nobody ever believed it was gonna be a spiritual destruction, but you, Bug
I mean,
loves
there's
all.
no
You're
way
the-
we could.
But Bug loves
ground
all.
that
You're the
claim.
first person today, 21st century. You're the first person to come and say that it's a spiritual destruction and not a literal destruction. Even though when Daniel talks about all the other kingdoms, oh, it's a literal destruction. But once we get to this one, because we see that the issue is raised here, that the Muslims clearly fulfill this, right? We have to say that it's spiritual. That's
I can
the only reason
I
why
can
you're saying
argue
it's
that it's still spiritual for like the other one.
No, you. Okay, how about this? I'm gonna show you why it's
Still be
not
a spiritual destruction in some sense.
Do you know who the little horn is?
Who's the little horn?
Mentioned in Daniel 7:24. Okay, it says that the little horn, that whoever this figure is, he subdues 3 kings. He comes after 10 kings. He persecutes the people of God. He changes God's laws and times. Right? He does these things. It says that alongside the kingdom of God being given to the saints of the Most High, alongside the kingdom being given, they also take his dominion. It says they consume and destroy his dominion, right? What up is fire? So this figure is going to be identified as Constantine, right? Because it says he comes from the 4th kingdom. He persecutes those of God, which Constantine did. He changes God's laws and times, which Constantine did. He implemented like Roman law with the Christian law. He also changed the rest day, the day of the Sabbath, from Saturday to Sunday. He subdued 3 kings, Licinius, Maximus II, Maxinius. He subdued three kings to get his rulership. He comes after a bunch of kings, and he did all of these things, right? So Constantine is the only candidate to fill this little horn title, right? So Constantine is the little horn, and it says his dominion is going to be taken, is going to be destroyed, and is going to be consumed by the saints of the Most High. His dominion was Constantinople. Who conquered Constantinople?
Who?
The Muslims, right? When they destroyed the Roman Empire, they conquered Constantinople.
Okay, like we could all
Okay, so we see that there is a physical destruction, right? Because it says the kingdom is given to them, and a dominion is also given to them, right? Something physical, and we see that this something physical, the Muslims have it, and it says it's with them everlastingly, and it's still with the Muslims today. So the destruction is physical, and the specific part, the specific land that they're meant to take, the Muslims took it. So what do we do? What do we do? We see that it is a physical destruction, and we see that only the Muslims fulfill it.
So
I have doubts
I
about
would argue that this doesn't even make sense as being Constantine, right? Like Daniel
Why not?
7:25 says, "He shall speak words against the Most High and shall wear out the saints of the Most High," right? Would you affirm that like this Constantine figure is persecuting
Yeah,
and
he was
killing?
persecuting.
Okay.
Yeah, throughout his time of being a king, he persecuted many people. When he was a pagan, he persecuted anyone who wasn't a pagan. When he was Arian, he persecuted anyone who was an Arian. When he was a Trinitarian, he persecuted anyone that wasn't Trinitarian.
Yeah. I would argue that him ending the persecution of Christians and legalizing Christianity, helping convene the Council of Nicaea and defending the Trinity and those types of things doesn't fit someone who's making war against the saints and
No, that's not true, because it says that the fourth kingdom is pagan and that he comes from the fourth kingdom, so he must also be a pagan. Which we know Constantine
yeah, but
was.
this just presupposes that this has to be a prophecy that's already been fulfilled versus like
What
a
it
future
says he comes from the fourth
Antichrist
kingdom.
prophecy.
Wait. It says he comes from the fourth kingdom, which is the Roman Empire. Does the Roman Empire still exist?
No, not in its form that it used to.
Okay, so that means he must have already came. So who is he?
I mean, even given Constantine, like even granting
Why?
Constantine, right?
Okay, if you grant
His
Constantine, you look, brother. I'll be honest, because we've been on this for a minute. If you grant Constantine, the prophecy's over. But look, you already had conceded earlier, pretty much, that if we follow the prophecy and we're consistent with what Daniel says, if we're talking about the same type of destruction which Daniel was talking about for the 4 previous kingdoms, then it's going to be the Muslims, and the Muslims fulfill this. So I think unless you have any objection against this, like that's really it. Because even the wording from like Daniel 2:44, when it talks about the destruction of the other kingdoms, it uses the exact same wording that it does in verse 40 in reference to the Roman Empire crushing the other kingdoms, right? Which is some sort of literal physical destruction, militarily destruction.
Yeah. Like even with like even granting Constantine, right? We could still affirm that it's Christ's kingdom that that still ended up on top, or the kingdom is
It's not true. It
is
says
simply
his dominion.
Christ's
It says
kingdom.
his dominion is taken. Constantinople, where is it at today?
Constantinople is gone today, but
No, but the land where it was. Wait.
this
Wait.
presupposes
You said
the
it's
meaning of
gone
like
today.
taken
Wait.
away and these types
Wait.
of
Bug.
things
One
being
sec.
meant in a
Bug.
literal sense, in like a war
One
sense.
sec. Bug. Relax. You said it's gone today. Who destroyed it and who took it?
The Muslims destroyed the Roman Empire. Right?
Nice.
Yeah.
Well, that's
But
it. So they destroyed the
once
Roman
again,
Empire.
like,
They said
this is more of
Constantinople,
a
they took it.
presupposition of it being in like a war or battle sense versus in like a spiritual or figurative sense, or in the sense of like outlasting or becoming more powerful or ending up
Yeah,
on top.
Bug.
Those type of things.
You've already conceded that Christianity comes before 395. The Christians never destroyed the Roman Empire. The Muslims fulfilled the timeline better, and they actually did destroy the Roman Empire. So it just seems like you don't want to accept this. Seems like we have nothing more to talk about if you don't want to accept that.
Okay, I appreciate it, brother.
Thank you, bro.
Love you. Yeah. So my entire point that I'm trying to make is essentially here. I'll share my screen. Okay. The point that I'm trying to make here is that with Daniel 2 and Daniel 7. I hope my audio wasn't muted. Okay. I thought I had it muted the whole time on your end. Sorry. With Daniel 2 and Daniel 7, the entire point I'm trying to make is that, if we look at this, right, obviously it's a little weird with how this is worded with it being Constantine, because he's rises after 10 kings, which like that's unclear with being Constantine, subdues 3 kings, which there's no evidence of Constantine doing, speaks against the Most High, or blaspheming, which doesn't make sense unless you're affirming like it's not because Constantine is Christian and worship the true God. Unless you're a Muslim, it doesn't make sense. So he has 1 that he fulfills. He wears out or persecutes the saints, which he didn't. Like for the Muslims, he would have to be persecuting like who knows who. He tries to change set times and laws, like change divine order, but he didn't. Unless you're a Muslim and you're affirming he did. He rules for a times and a half of a time, which would you could argue would be like 3.5 years or something. But he died naturally. He ruled for 30 plus years. The Muslims didn't kill Constantine. It says he's ultimately judged and destroyed by God, but Constantine died peacefully, not judged. So like out of all those that are supposedly fulfilled by the little horn, if you're Muslim, maybe 2, but that's not a fulfillment of the prophecy. If you're making like 8 prophetic claims and you hit 2 of them, like it's very clear that this isn't Constantine. I would argue, like as the church fathers argue with this, it's like something that's not been fulfilled. Or honestly, I have to look into this more, but I am curious as to why the entire thing, I think a majority of this is unfulfilled prophecy, if we are presupposing it is prophetic. And that's honestly where it ends right there, just with that. Because if you are affirming that this is about the Islam and you're having to take the literal approach, then this taking the literal approach, this can't be Constantine. This is unfulfilled. Or if we're taking like so it's pretty much where the argument ends for the like it being about Muhammad, right? I was arguing more that this is the prophecies here are figurative, right? And it's in reference to like the idea that the kingdoms are going to be destroyed. The God of heaven will set up a kingdom that shall never be destroyed, nor shall the kingdom be left to another people. It shall break in pieces all these kingdoms and bring them to an end, and it shall stand forever. I would argue that this is prophetic and figurative in the sense of it referring to the Christ kingdom outlasting and becoming more dominant, and also you could argue that aligns with like Revelations in the future thing, that Christ's kingdom comes down and destroys all the other earthly kingdoms in that sort of sense. And that's the position I'm holding. Now, like if I wish he would have like engaged with me on like as to why this has to be hermeneutically has to be literal and can't be figurative and those types of things, which that didn't really happen in the debate. I don't think that's like a fault at him. I should have pushed more onto that. But that's what I was arguing for. I would affirm that like Daniel 7 and Daniel 2 are a very strong argument. Like as I've said previously, I think out of all the supposed prophecies of Muhammad, it's the strongest one you could argue if you are a Muslim. But I would affirm that these are figurative. There's also one other thing. Here, let me pull it up. You could also argue, for example, like if you are taking this literally, right? The idea that the idea portrayed within Daniel 2 is that the kingdom, this God's kingdom is the one that's destroying all the other kingdoms, right? But some of the kingdoms that these are symbolizing didn't exist during the time of Muhammad. Like, for example, Babylon. Which ones are there? I forgot off the top of my head. Medo-Persian. Like the Medo-Persian Empire ended in 311 BC. I don't know when Greece ended. I don't know when Greece ended. Off the top of my head. It's probably, here, 146 BC, right? So these are both ended long before the time of Muhammad came about, right? So if you're affirming that this is literal, and you're affirming Islam here, then since it's saying that the God's kingdom, the stone kingdom, is supposed to destroy all these other kingdoms, it literally can't be Muhammad, because two of these kingdoms, 2 out of the 4, did not exist during the time of Muhammad. See what I mean? So like it really ends there, especially if you're taking the literal sense. That's really just the ending of the argumentation there. It is probably the hardest argument. I would affirm this probably it's by far and away the best argument if you are arguing for Muhammad in the Bible. I think it's like this. It's just the hardest to debunk. Not that there's much competition there with Song of Solomon 5:16 and that sort of thing. But yeah, I think I forgot where I read there was a good article debunking Daniel 7 and Daniel 2. I don't know if Sam Shamoon made it though, or if it was someone else. Here is a problem though. Like if you, whoops, I misclicked. If you one thing just for those who are going to debate this, right? One tip for you, if you're I wouldn't argue necessarily that like Son of Man is you could argue Son of Man's in reference to Muhammad, right? Like, for example, obviously we know scripturally that Son of Man within the Jewish understanding and Christian understanding does refer to Christ, especially biblically. Most Muslims, though, if you are arguing this, as we see here, will just try to like throw away that's like the corrupted text or whatever, and then you could technically argue with them on like their justification that this was corrupted and that type of thing. But even like affirming Son of Man is about Muhammad. If you're taking a literal approach to this kingdom being the one that destroys the others, it's literally not possible for it to be Islam. It just isn't, because 2 of the kingdoms didn't exist, like were destroyed 800 plus years before Islam even came about. But like that's what I was trying to argue, right? Like because of like that, like if you're trying to take a literal approach of Daniel 2 and 7, it literally can't be either Christ's kingdom or Muhammad's kingdom, right? It's just not possible. It's not possible that this kingdom was the one that destroyed that either kingdom was the one that destroyed Medo-Persian Empire, Greece. I would argue that this is symbolic and that type of thing. Like I've heard, for example, that Daniel 2, like Christ's kingdom, represents like the 4 kingdoms as being not like isolated like historical empires, but as like a single composite or single image symbolizing the entirety of humanity and imperial power and that type of thing, and spiritual systems that go against God. And then the idea that the kingdom of stone, Christ's kingdom, which strikes down the feet of the statue of Rome, causes the entire statue, which is the gold, silver, and bronze and iron, to collapse together. would mean that like the values, ideologies, and legacies and teachings and practices of like Babylon, Persia, Greece, and those types of things were destroyed. And you could also argue that they were like carried into the Roman Empire, which would be like the final like embodiment of all those combined, and those are destroyed. That's like that's pretty much the only way I see that this is logically makes sense and logically follows as a prophecy, is it being symbolic. And with that being the case, right, if you are taking that approach, then the justifications for it being about Muhammad are completely gone now, right? Like they don't have anything. I guess they could argue that then that they killed a single culmination of the being the Roman Empire and that type of thing. That's all they're really left with. But the idea that it's fully literal, it's not symbolic, and this stone kingdom killed all the other 4 kingdoms doesn't follow at all. It just doesn't follow. It doesn't make sense. But yeah, appreciate y'all for all tuning in on the stream. I'll probably be live tomorrow. I'm sorry for being gone so long. I was sick with COVID, and then before that I was on like a college trip for a week, so it's been a while. But yeah, glad to be back. I appreciate y'all tuning in and liking the live. I'd really appreciate if you guys tune in next time and share my live with other people so I can help as many people and teach as many people as possible. And yeah, appreciate it. God bless. See ya.